Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Debates Never Die. I wanted to call this episode Caping because niggas were going to need to put on their capes to protect their GOAT legacies. But Toby ran, he couldn't join us. A few other Ronaldo stands couldn't join us. So we're here, really a circle of winners. Well, I consider myself a winner because my Messi prediction was fire, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm your host, Malcom Masvikwa, aka the Messi stand, and I will hold that. I cape that goat, but we'll get into that in a second. I'm joined by two members today, two members of our crew. Before I introduce both of them, can the listeners know we are dealing with load shedding just like the rest of you guys? Well, I'm not, you Africans are in Wakanda. So
You're back in like 2 days, but
hey,
cool.
you don't know my locations. So I'm just saying that to say we may lose a few of our members as the episode goes on. So please bear with us. We apologize. We're dealing with our failing system just like you guys are. With that being said, first up, we have the man who has used Mario Götze in 4 FIFAs back to back in my career. Khanya Mosetlhi, LLM, bro. How are you doing?
Ah, mate, I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm recovered. I'm recovered from the Brazil L. I'm still smarting a bit purely for Neymar, the individual, but I'm recovered. I'm recovered. I'm glad Portugal are out. That helped me a lot.
That was a painful thing because my agenda for Messi to win this was strong, but seeing Neymar cry, my boy, it touched me. I won't even cap.
Better. He did what he had
He,
to do.
bro, he really fucking did. The second member of this episode is the man who invented the offside rule, Mvuyelwa Nomvalo, but he's actually not. I think we've lost him because of load shedding. Load shedding, load shedding. My apologies, load shedding. My apologies. So there you have it. Wakanda, you people in Wakanda really are struggling. So really, it seems like it's just going to be the two of us until we can get Mvu back. But I think our chemistry will carry this episode through. Don't you agree? In any case, Khanya, round of 16, we had a lot of predictions. A lot was said. There's a lot to cover. And let's just start with the elephant in the room. You predicted Spain, Brazil. Then you said France, Brazil. Both your boys are out. Are you on an L streak, bro? What's going on?
Mate, I really can't predict for Oaks taking on serious penalties. Spain and Brazil let themselves down with the way they went out in those
I
games.
agree.
And they went out to what, the same team. I don't think that is a coincidence that that things happen the way they did. And I want to like hop on and say no, Brazil deserved to win this. This was theirs. Ultimately, mate, you got to win the games there, and if you don't, you have to hold it. And as sad as I am for Neymar, as I said before, I'm genuinely really happy for like Modric and Croatia as a country. Like, this is huge for them.
It is true, no, dude. It's monumental, dude, because like just kind of touching. Actually, let's start with that Brazil Croatia game, right? So now let's look at it from the perspective of Croatia because you brought that up. Um, Luka Modric, man, I completely agree in your point there because that is massive. When you talk about, let me throw this statement at you, dude. Uh, the best second act in football history. Do you think Modric holds that title? Like for me, historically, it's been Zidane, right?
Mm.
Because the second act of his career was phenomenal. But Modric is now looking at a three-P Champions League, a FIFA World's Best Award, a final, carrying a team to the final of the World Cup, and now a semi-final. Just what do you make of Luka Modric and that Croatia team as a whole after another phenomenal tournament?
Luka Modric specifically, and that statement, the best second act, right? I think it has to be like I think that has to be how we describe Modric. He joined Madrid
I
what
agree.
in 2013. He was
At
he was
27,
mate. He was labeled as one of the worst signings like that Madrid had made that season. To then go on to win a Ballon d'Or, to make a World Cup final, to do all that he's gone on to do, he's going to retire, and people won't remember that he was at Tottenham. Like the fact that he was there as long as he did and played in like the most prestigious league doesn't matter. That doesn't play a
mm,
part in his legacy. Like you said, he was 27. He was 27 years old, and like he wasn't like some unknown youngster at the time. Like he was a firmly established Premier League footballer. to then go on to the heights he's gone on to, and to be compared to, and I think rightfully so, like the best midfielders of all time. Mate, he's one of one. Honestly, like he's the only reason that I'm genuinely okay with the fact that Brazil went out.
Honestly, bro, like Luka Modric. I think you touched on something profound there, dude. That's a man that played in the Prem. Like he was a part of like a relatively successful Tottenham team. Kind of similarly to like David Ginola back in the day. Canute. They had like really successful spells. Berbatov, Keane, but unlike those other players, you honestly forget like my recollection of Luka Modric before 2014 is a blur, bro. Not because he wasn't good, but because the heights he ascended to, it's just a different situation. And now, like for me, and I'd like to get your viewpoints on this. When I look at Luka Modric, it's almost like he's one of the few footballers on this planet. I add like Messi, Neymar to this list, who are impervious to coaching. It seems no matter who is at the helm, not to say he's had bad coaches, but like at Madrid, right? You had Benitez, you've had Ancelotti, you've had Zidane, you've had what's his name? He's at Wolves now. Laporte.
Lopetegui.
Yeah, he was at Madrid for a short stint, right?
Lopetegui, I think, but yeah.
He,
Yeah,
he was
he was Madrid. He left before the 2018, left Spain before the 2018 World Cup, and went and dusted Madrid. Terrible
and
spell.
terrible spell. But Luka Modric was like a shining star throughout all of that. You now then look at this, World Cup yet again, and if we get into the finer details of the game, I think, would you say, how would you define the game in terms of how it played out? Do you see it as a one-sided, situation of like Brazil really dominating proceedings and Croatia playing intelligently, or do you think it was more of a 50-50 type game?
No, it was a very, very even game. I think Brazil made better chances, but it's not like they were dominant in that game. Like they were throughout that game. There was the feeling that Croatia are definitely in this and can snatch something. Like, but by the time they scored the equalizer, it was just like, yeah, like that was what was going to happen. Like you could see how sloppy Brazil was starting to get. Like to pretend that Brazil were robbed in any way it's a lie. It's a lie.
Mm.
Like
And what do you make of the comparisons to Modric's performance here to Zidane's against the same team in 2006?
oh no, Zidane's was clear. Let's not pretend. I loved
Yeah.
Modric's performance. Happy to see him. What Zidane did in 2006 cannot be undone. Your children will watch that in 20 years' time, and they will still be as impressed.
Do you think the principle is the same, i.e. Modric was the guy carrying the every aspect of every third of play? It was Luka Modric dictating things, or do you think it was, because something we didn't talk about on this podcast was the fact that I believe Croatia have the strongest midfield at this tournament, right? Brozovic, Kovacic, Modric. So do you place a lot of this success on Modric solely, or do you look at that trio and say, nah, like the battle that was existing in the midfield and the dominance from Croatia at certain points in the game was more to do with the three?
So I like to touch on this because I had a conversation with a podcast guest before, Leslie Magwena, literally yesterday, that they do have arguably the strongest midfield three at this tournament. You like I don't think with the role Modric plays, you can actually have him like put their success down to just him. He's not a final third guy like that. He's not super creative in that sense. He keeps the team ticking. You need other players who bring other things. It's hard to quantify exactly how large his impact is because obviously he's the biggest name. So when they win, it's always going to be him, right? Like he's going to get most of the plaudits and he deserves it because he's the best player. But I don't necessarily think that in that game against Brazil, he was undeniably the best player in that game. You could give it to Gabardio just as easily.
I see. Nah, I hear you. That's a fair point. The battle that we saw, I mean, and it's kind of a consistent trend throughout the World Cup, and we'll touch on the other games of the round of 16 in a moment. But the battle we saw, it was beautiful, man. I really feel like football has got that, pre-2013 feel to it again, right? The X's and the O's matter, but ultimately it seems like teams are just saying, let's play, right? Croatia and Brazil were both defending in mid blocks. They weren't doing this like excessive high pressing, nor were they necessarily sitting off. It was more like, okay, let's see what you've got. You know, it's kind of like when you play UFC on PS and niggas say, you know, no grappling, no submissions, let's just brawl. That's what I kind of saw. And it was still technical, but it was in a very natural way. And I really loved seeing that. If we switch focus to Brazil now, though, how detrimental do you, because a lot of buzz was circulating around social media about taking off Vinicius Jr. And my response to that was quite simply, guys, they scored after he went off. But how do you view that substitution in the context of momentum and just Brazil moving forward in from when he came off in about the 60th minute?
He wasn't doing anything, mate. That there was nothing Vinicius was doing in that match. When I saw him going off, like legitimately, the moment I was like, by the way, you've actually been on this entire time. He ghosted. I think it was the right decision. They scored after he went off, as you said. I think Brazil's failure didn't come from making that substitution. I think it came from not bringing on Fabinho instead of bringing on Fred. Like the way they got caught out for that goal was because they were too high up. Like they were still playing almost too proactively. Like they didn't need to be doing that. And like there's even a clip that went around afterwards of like Neymar complaining to us after they. Why are you guys that high up? Like what were you chasing? There were 5 minutes left. You can't be winning 1-0 in extra time in the 117th minute and be that high up. That goal is an embarrassment to concede, honestly. Like
Yeah,
after that
it was
happened,
very it was very
yeah,
childish. I
it was
completely agree.
sloppy. It was
Yeah.
sloppy. It was sloppy. It was sloppy. And when that kind of thing happens, you kind of just know that you're just not going to win the shootout. You're not. Like the momentum afterwards, the wind's knocked out of you. It was like Brazil undid themselves. Croatia, to their credit, made sure they were competitive throughout. But like to say that, like that's like I keep saying, I can't say Brazil were unlucky. Like they did this to themselves.
It truly was a series of disappointments with this Brazil squad, and it's an unaired episode that we couldn't get out to you guys because of sound issues. But I echoed these very sentiments in why I didn't think Brazil were going to go all the way. It just seemed like the team just lacked a certain level of cohesion, not from the perspective of playing the game of football, because we all know that's something that Brazilians can do in their sleep, but from the perspective of leadership and the delegating of responsibilities and roles. I think Tite did a horrible job in establishing contingencies, right? So you make a very good point that if you're trying to see a game through, why the hell is Fred the substitution you make instead of Fabinho? Because as good as Fred is in the sense of winning the ball higher up in the pitch, you know, not necessarily giving up your threat in transition when you bring him on. In extra time, 117 in the 117th minute, surely what you're looking to do is possess the ball, sit a bit deeper, you know. And Fabinho and Casemiro in marshalling a back four, you have nothing to worry about. So I think
Honestly,
I think
like
the point, yeah.
it annoys me to think about now because it's just like Fred coming on is one of the dumbest things like imaginable. It's like, what did you guys mean? What like why was that the move? Okay, I lied to you. I'm not healed. I'm sorry. Speaking about this actually pissed me off again because I watched. I said, okay, it's fine. You know, Oaks want to grab a second, but it's just like, no, just park the bus. Why why were Oaks still doing that? Like Neymar couldn't have scored at a better time, right?
He did.
Yeah.
He did his role, man. He did his part. He made his contribution. It reminds me of, you know, like Messi at Barcelona, Liverpool, 2019, or yeah, 2019, the 4-0 at Anfield. It's like, bro, your star man has done his part. The rest of you, like to quote the Rock, know your role. Like at that point, it's quite simply a matter of seeing it through. And it's really just, I feel like, you know, it truly is just a story of disappointments, bro. Like Rafinha, man, I had to recant my perspective on him. I don't think his ascension is going to be as consistent as I anticipated. I truly think it's going to be. I don't even know what it's going to be. I think that. Do you agree that was probably the most disappointing player in this Brazil team?
So I think for me, it's really hard to say that to him because, bro, he was coming here. He's coming into the World Cup not necessarily in the best of form, like adapting to this really really big move. I didn't expect him to come to the World Cup and like set it alight. Genuinely, I think that's not a fair expectation. So no, I'm not gonna say about him. I think he's been disappointing at Barca, but knowing the context of his situation there, to think he'd come here and be perfectly fine and just in his first World Cup with everything else he's already dealing with, I wouldn't think that this was going to be his time to shine. Like
It,
this is what I expected.
the ineptness of the Brazilian team. Not all of them, of course. We know Neymar was on his shit, and Casemiro had a very, I feel, mature performances throughout. And the defense, for the most part, were doing their job. But the ineptness in players like Paqueta, well, I think these are phenomenal players. When I say ineptness, I'm speaking more to like their situational awareness. Um, and like they're what just seemed like a lack of courage. When I look at like Paqueta, Vinicius for that last game specifically, because before that he was phenomenal. Rodrigo, Rafinha, Richarlison to a certain degree. I look at someone like Gabby Martinelli and that guy's seemingly intrinsic ability to get himself going, right? And I must tip my hat off to him because it's quite clearly that there are people that are tenacity merchants, but their tenacity is a derivative of things going their way or like fans being supportive. I think Martinelli truly just has that dog in him, like that. And it really makes me look at Tite and say, why was that not a substitution you considered? Was it age? Um,
I think for me it's just continuity. It's a sad reality that I've had to accept in this tournament. Mate, Madison didn't touch the pitch at this World Cup.
ish, ish,
Like
bro.
like we spent all that time campaigning and hoping and being excited when he finally made it. It's just like it meant nothing. It meant nothing, and Grealish got minutes and others got minutes. It's just I think Martinelli is also just a victim of that.
Do you
Like
think? Do you think
like
it's? Do
he
you
just
think it's
other
a? Do you think it's a matter of prestige of club?
with Martinelli, I don't think so. No, because if prestige of the club mattered, Richarlison wouldn't be starting for Brazil.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he was getting minutes even when he was at Everton. I don't think Tite suffers from that. I think it's the same thing that most international coaches have. They just value continuity over like just pure ability. It's one of those things I think you'd only understand as a coach. I don't like it, but I've had to just accept that is what it is.
which really, really, really makes me want to see what someone like Jose Mourinho would do in international management, because we know that's a man that has no issue playing a guy that hasn't started in 3 months against Liverpool and expecting them to bag, and more often they're not bagging. So I do hope we get to see how that looks, because your point of continuity and like repetition being what they prioritize is very true. Southgate's Deschamps, like quite clearly, it's a consistent trend.
Yeah.
So I really would love to see Mourinho with that. Now, kind of just moving swiftly along, because we're going to touch on Neymar a bit near the end. But now, if we look at the whole situation with France and England, right? So you have a game that seemingly has two very distinct uh, viewpoints or schools of thoughts. You have, on the one hand, people, mainly British, of course, right? The British demographic believe that second half was England all over France. They were unlucky. They deserved to go through. Then you have, the other side, which tends to be the neutral and the French inclined people that are saying no. It was a good contest, undeniably, but when you look at the value of opportunity created and the goals scored, opportunities missed, France definitely deserve to go through. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
First off, a big shout out to Harry Kane. Thank you for doing what you did.
I
I'm glad
told
that
these niggas. I told these niggas about that man. I go listen to D&D episode 1 and just hear what I said about that man, bro.
yeah, no, it's unfortunate though. On a very serious note, like two penalties in the same game. Like there was the feeling that he's not gonna bag this. The way he missed though was spectacular. He should have given it to somebody else because there's no reason to sky it like that. He panicked. He panicked because he saw Lloris going the same way, and that was. But no, I digress. Look, I don't think that England deserved to stay in it. I think they had enough chances to have gone the extra time, definitely. But France is better. France is the better
Yeah,
side.
plain and simple.
Ultimately,
Plain and simple.
I don't think that there is a huge argument to be made for them. Like they were, like England had their moments. They were in the game, 110%. But France are better, and ultimately that's how it panned out. England's best chances were set pieces. Even like that very last moment, that Rashford free kick. Never in my life have I wished and hoped for Rashford to do something like I did then. It's
Bro,
very
listen.
unfortunate.
Listen, that there is what footballers dream of. That moment, dude, where the like you know how rare it is in football for you to get like a I've seen it probably like 3 times in my life that I can recall now. And I know it happened to Messi in the World Cup in 2014 in the final where he had a free kick in the last minute of the game.
Oh, he's
Um
guide that.
and he
Yeah,
skied that thing. Rashford and then David Beckham. I can't. It's so rare, and he almost got that, man. The way he struck that ball, man, that was truly. It would have been a fucking moment if that went in.
yeah. No. But you're ignoring something. You're beloved Argentina, and they're very fortunate
Oh,
method
don't
of
worry.
progressing.
No, we're getting into the goats after this. I just want to finish up on England. Don't worry. Um, your thoughts on Saka being the best player on the pitch? Do you agree with that? On the day, of course.
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. But again, also him finishing that's something that there's a chance he had where he's meant to have put that away.
But I won't lie, they racially abuse him, so it's good. He mustn't score. Nah, he mustn't score. Nah, but no, honestly, but can I tell you what the most reassuring thing was from the perspective of being an Arsenal fan? It was purely just from just looking at his performance and seeing him not be out of place. Because we know Theo Hernandez is a bit of a fool, dumb when it comes to his defensive duties. But
Yeah,
to pass the physical challenge, right? Because with him, it's a game of physicality, speed, explosiveness, strength. The fact that Saka was beating him in 50-50 balls, taking him on, wasn't afraid. Man, we have a fucking star in our hands, bro. That is a fearless footballer. He truly was galvanizing the whole English team moving
yeah.
forward. So, play on the pitch shouts. I agree. I don't think Mbappe had that great of a game. He had a really good moment with a few good moments with Kyle Walker where he won that individual battle. But yeah, all in all, man, I think England can leave with a certain level of pride. Final question on this England situation. Um, 2026, do you think they could win it if Southgate is at the helm, or is it time to start a new project?
I don't think England will win it regardless, right?
Okay.
It's just not what I expect. I think there's a lot of things that need to a lot of things need to line up for you in order for that to be the case. I don't imagine that England will be in a situation where they are truly the best side at a tournament. There's always going to be a side like France. Like in a different world, Brazil would have gone through. I think Brazil also would have beaten England. I don't think that the reason they didn't go through is something super complex. Like yes, the penalty does overshadow most of it, but it's just like you guys lost to the better side. The only goal you had in the game before then was also a penalty. Granted, it deserved and merited penalty, but it's just like France were just always going to win that game. I like England were always like underdogs.
I have a
I don't think I
I have
don't
a
think
slightly different viewpoint. I have a slightly different viewpoint on that. I do think that it's a game competes contested at that level. It becomes a game of margins. And I don't know. I just can't help but feel if Saka stays on, you bring on Rashford, uh,
a
perhaps
little bit earlier.
you can bring on Rashford a bit earlier, keep Sterling on the bench until added time, provided they can get back in it. I think England walk away with that, not on the merits of being the better team, but on the merits of just that they were like an annoying fly. And I think that's the biggest compliment you can give England. Their heads didn't drop for a second, man. John Stones, Harry Maguire, Kyle Walker as well was really galvanizing the boys. Of course, Saka. Midfield was a bit non-existent, and I think that speaks to the disparity in quality you're touching on. But all in all, England didn't drop their heads, and that's fucking hard to do in a World Cup because we spoke about how difficult it is to maintain some level of belief when you concede one, let alone two goals.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I think what you're saying is fair. There will never be the outright best at a tournament. I agree, but I don't think you have to be the best, man. I really don't think you have to be the best to win a World Cup. I think we've just been in an era where
Where
the
that's happened.
best yeah, where the best
Mm.
teams have won. But I look back at 2006, they weren't necessarily the best at that tournament. And I think that's kind of what England should try replicate. And kind of, okay, ignoring that fact, do you believe Southgate should proceed? Because that's what I was trying to get at. Because I think if you do have the right guy at the helm, England can kind of be that, like this, the grit they showed makes me think this team has that 2006 Italy thing about them, where it's like, you may be better than us, but you won't beat us. But do you
Mm.
think Southgate is the type of manager to cultivate that and really get it to the point of being able to slay giants?
I mean, look, I like Southgate. I think when he started England, he's done his job, right? You can argue that they should have probably won the final, maybe like done better against Croatia when they went out to them at the last World Cup. But I think for the most part, he can look at a CV and say, dude, he's handled it really well. I do think it might be time for change, because I don't think that most of the squad is going to be what he'd be taking to 2026 anyway. I think that it is the end of an era for this England side. They should be trying to embrace that change holistically. I don't think he should be in charge. I don't know who would step in for him though, which is the only issue. But
Mm.
I think we've seen enough of Southgate. It's been great, but I think it's done.
I agree. I don't think he can oversee the evolution of this English team, because now, the seniority is going, the paradigm is going to shift entirely over the next 4 years. Obviously, we have the Euro into, and Harry Kane is touching 30, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he's 29 right
So
now.
he's 29 right now. He'll be 33. Definitely has something to offer, but I think you look at this English team and you say perhaps we should prioritize a manager that can work with this young core, cultivate this young core, and most importantly, have some level of contingency. To your point on Southgate and taking some pride in what he's done, I agree. The shift to a 4-3-3 and inserting Henderson into this team, I think it did show his managerial vigor, his ability to manage, and I don't think that's being spoken about enough, right? But I think you're looking at a man who is operating kind of what Gary Neville said about Arteta, and he was vehemently wrong. I think it applies to Southgate. I think you look at what you've done: final of a Euro, semi-final of a World Cup, went out against defending champions in the quarterfinals. You say it can't get better than this. Pack your bags and get going. That's where I think. And England, who do you bring in? That's a great question. There are not many managers that fancy England. Who would you love to see? If you could have anyone as illogical, as imaginative, who would you pick to take England over the next 4 years?
Thomas Tuchel.
Oh, that's a nice pick. That's a real. Oh, he would bang, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, you win, dude.
That's the dream. If they get him, I can say 2026. What it'd be like? I think what 50 years, not 50 years. How many years would it be since 1966?
It would be 60.
There we go. I could see that if they got Thomas Tuchel, I could definitely see them potentially winning. See
You
it. I
think?
don't see them doing it. I don't see them doing it without like a world-class coach, not a
You,
coach who just keeps the team together, like
yeah.
tactically, like they need to be perfect.
You think a German would take the English job though?
I think Tuchel for whatever reason has an affinity to English football.
Uh,
If anyone would, I think he would.
okay. Nah, you win. I'm not even gonna give mine. Fuck you, dude. That was.
No. I've given this some thought. Genuinely, like I've been like trying to think of like what would make the most sense for them, and like I can't think past them. I can't think of like a better way for them to try and like make something of like what they've done in the past few years. I think everyone has looked at England recently and has seen that they have improved in tournaments.
Nah, yeah,
And
Tommy Tuchel. That's a fucking great pick. I think also you now have a situation where, in terms of a manager that can maximize talent, I think there are few better in the world right now than Thomas Tuchel. So, that's a fucking match made. I was gonna say Jose Mourinho, but I think Thomas Tuchel makes the most sense in terms of Jose Mourinho. Just a quick thing, I would love to see him manage an African nation. I think he would be groundbreaking, bro. I think Jose could take an African nation to a World Cup final, and I know that's such a generic statement, but I just think a massive factor that comes with managerial success at an international level when you have like a manager that is not native to the country is the affinity that you pointed out. So Tuchel's affinity towards English football and towards English culture, seemingly that that correlates, in my opinion, to synergy that results in better results. You look at Jose Mourinho, dude, this guy has to be like a quarter African, dude. Like this nigga rides for African teams. So just talking on dream matchups or dream link ups. Sorry, Jose Mourinho for an African team would be fucking beautiful. But moving swiftly along to now Netherlands, Argentina. You had a few questions for me and my goats. I'm a representative.
First of all, thoughts on Wout Burgers at Arsenal? I think that's my first question.
Burgers from the Dutch player.
Yeah.
He's been a really tough player for me to profile. What I see him as, and please correct me where you disagree, because I assume you're a bit more measured in your analysis of him. I see him as like an Aaron Ramsey type player. Where
no, not Berghuis. Weghorst, my boy, the striker.
Oh, Weghorst at Arsenal.
Yeah.
Dude.
Hear me out.
Wait, okay.
Jesus is injured. He's on loan at Besiktas. You don't see the value in just bringing in an absolute battering ram of the striker.
No, okay, look, okay. Now, if based off of that performance, right? I cannot deny the value of bulldozers, bro. And there's something that football has lost. There was not, as an Arsenal fan, the most confidence I've ever felt in games where we're losing was with the era when we had Giroud on the bench, because he would come on and he would just, I think it was 15, 16, 16, 17, around that time. He would change games, bro. So from that perspective, yes. But, bro, dude, I don't know if that's, it has to be in conjunction with someone else. It can't just be there goes. Mate, I'll actually scream.
Mate, he's made a believer out of me. That's the type of cameo you dream about, honestly. It's just ended very, very unfortunately. I think Emi Martinez's performance deserves a round of applause, because
incredible.
That's him. I don't care who else scored the penalties. That's him.
Yeah, 110%. Wait, on the topic of Weghorst, did you see the routine they scored with? It's his. He created it. That is swag. I won't even lie. I hope football goes back to the era of the creative set pieces, because ever since like 2009, they just stopped. Even FIFA used to have, remember people when you could create the set piece? Boy, that was so cool. Yeah, I hope that this becomes a thing, because, bro, do you know the word stunned? Do you know how stunned I was in disbelief watching that game? Like, like in terms of the actual Netherlands versus Argentina. So we need to obviously speak about the weight of the rivalry, and that is something that I forgot why I used to love international football, and this game helped me remember. This tournament really, but this game specifically, because my boy, international football is the lost remnants of barbarianism. Mate, these niggas hate each other. Like they actually, like this kumbaya. I play for Arsenal. You play, dude. Niggas have beef on the basis of international relations. So watching this, bro, what a fucking spectacle, man. Oh my goodness gracious. It's almost like this World Cup has reminded us, or reminded me, why statistics in football don't mean, dude, what does it mean? What's expected goals, Khanya?
No, honestly, I agree to 100%. I think this World Cup is really highlighted how important the intangibles of games are, more than like any other thing I've seen in a very, very long time. Like expecting the team to win purely because of the players on the pitch is just like, nah, mate. You gotta watch the first 15 minutes before you want to make any assessment. Like, really look at who's playing and say, is that really what you think's gonna happen the rest of 90 minutes?
And international.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say international football, dude. It's so beautiful because it really speaks to the importance of chemistry, right? I know, like, in the FUT community, right? A lot of FUT players are always like, oh, chem links, why are there chem links? Oh, and I think it was PES back in the day that used to have a chemistry rating with your squads. Guys, it's the international football is so beautiful because you take a guy that plays for West Brom or a guy that plays for Hoffenheim and you put him with your boys and put Van Dijk in front of him. He will not fucking care. He will not care. The confidence that permeates through the squad just because you're playing with your boy. In the case of Croatia, the boy, the homie used to eat vegetables and drink soup with. You're playing with him. The fucking chemistry when it's on the pitch, man. They don't care if it's fucking dude. If it's Casemiro, they don't care about prestige, status quo, any of that shit. All that matters is I'm with my niggas, I'm representing my country, and I'm valued. And that speaks to the thing you're talking about, where it's not even about names on the pitch. And players that can assert themselves at this level. I need people to understand that, like, yes, the Champions League, I think we can agree, is the highest level of technical football you will probably see in terms of like the technical display, 110%. But in terms of pressure and the ability to perform or the likelihood to perform in a World Cup situation, it's a different fucking level. So it's so beautiful because, you know, just to piggyback on your point, you find that like niggas from fucking dude Saudi Arabia looking Messi and saying, "Who are you, mates?" We'll never see that if it's PSG versus Lens or Rennes or fucking that. You'll never see it. It's beautiful. I really have missed international football.
No, I agree with it entirely. Like it's given me like a much greater appreciation for like tournament football just generally as well. Like there's a certain beauty in like straight knockout football that if you lose one, you concede one goal, that's you done. There's no second leg in international football. There's there's nothing. There's no chance of redemption. You fucked up in the 9th minute, you're done now. And that's it. And I think the way we've seen Portugal out, the way we've seen like multiple teams like lose out because of tiny moments. It's honestly like it's been amazing. This is by far like we had a conversation in the last episode. This is by far the best World Cup I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to speak to my dad about his viewpoint because he's obviously been watching this tournament since what, like 1990 or so. So I want to see what he has to say because I don't think football as a spectacle can get much better than this. Like right now is when I'm telling my American friends to tune in because I know every game it's going to be a show. But quickly, just going back to Argentina and Netherlands. So you watched that game, the results. Do you think Argentina got away with one?
Um, I want to say they did because to concede 2 goals in like that short a period of time is kind of embarrassing. And we argued in the group about the fact that I didn't think that the penalty they won was legitimate either. I don't think they played well enough to deserve the win. But when you have, I think again, it's one of those where like they have better players. They have better players. They have better goalkeeper, and ultimately those kinds of differences told. And I think we're better off having Argentina in a semi-final than we are having the Dutch. So ultimately, I'm happy with the result because I can make sense of it, and I think that Emi Martinez's performance on his own, he deserved to go through. I don't think there's a Dutch player I can point to besides their goals who I think was relevant enough to like for them to say that they deserve to go through.
I agree. Although I disagree in the sense that I think you're painting the picture, the game out to be a bit more tempered than it actually was, or a bit more in the balance. I think this game emphasized the end of an era in the in the Van Gaal type of manager, in the sense that you do one thing really fucking well, but you kind of lack in another thing. By that I mean defensively, the way I know it's quite funny to say, given that they conceded 2 goals, but defensively, I really loved it, the shape of his team, man. I don't know if you noticed that change of moving Ake centrally and Van Dijk to left centre back to kind of act as a deterrent for Messi to force Messi further when Messi's cutting in. You know, if
Yeah.
Van Dijk is the first person you're meeting, you kind of screen him along further. So that's why even on the goal, the reverse pass was from a quite an inside angle. Little things like that, the way in which Frankie de Jong was man marking Messi as well. So there were large spurts where Argentina did look a bit inept, right? Because I do think there's a greater sense of responsibility in the team, but in terms of their individual performances, but like that Frankie did as well as anyone could. You kind of also then use Blind as a second man on Messi. It was really, really great defensive display and defensive tactics, in my opinion. But going forward, bro, I just think, don't you think that Messi, don't you think that Netherlands looked a bit inept moving forward? Like, do you recall any moments in the game where you were like, no, they are.
Oh no, no! Listen, when I say that Argentina were lucky, I say this only because of what you've just highlighted. That Netherlands decided to try and nullify Messi, and for the most part, once they've done that, it's not like there were a ton of chances. I think Alvarez probably had his most like absent game up until this point. As a result, I think that if you I think the crux of my point is just that aside from if there is no penalty, Netherlands are only one goal out the entire game, and it didn't look like Argentina were going to extend that lead without that pen. I think that Netherlands set up to play a certain way, and they got their game plan right. They kept it level. They got the penalties.
There was a very clear game plan there. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you are just clearly not as good as your opposition, and that's what you managed to do, they succeeded. Technically, Louis van Gaal got everything correct. There's nothing he should have changed. He made the right change. He got them back into the game when he brought on Big Horst, and then ultimately they lost because Emi Martinez said no.
But boy, those are actually substitutions of depth. Luke de Jong and Weghorst, same time. You knew what football was coming. You knew.
Yeah. and it worked. They won set pieces. They scored. They go like bro. Like they were flawless. Genuinely, considering like the squad quality. Like bro, like I like Martin de Roon. I really do. But Martin de Roon, de Jong, like no, bro, no. Argentina, like are a better side. Like the fact that they were able to like hold themselves back in that game is because the manager was like tactically astute. And I'd like to say one more thing. Gakpo, I don't want to hear it. That guy's not 50M. He's not. Like I like him. I get why Oaks are excited. Please, can we not pretend? We've seen him. We've seen him. Anytime I've seen him in a big game, he's lying.
So you think it's light skin privilege?
No, don't like he's talented. He can strike a ball really well, and like he's a bit flashy. There's a lot to like. There really, really is. But like not 50M. There are other options, and he's also not that young. Like there's this misconception that Gakpo is like 21. That guy's 23, bro. He turns 24 just now. Like he's not like a new wonder kid. He's a really, really talented footballer, and I think there is room for improvement. I don't think he is so good that for 50M you can't find better attacking options.
Can I tell you who I liken him to? And it's not necessarily to Inyatim, but just in terms of profile development and just like kind of just gassing.
Okay, let me hear you.
Boy, this is actually the Afrikaans for Charleston.
Richarlison has more.
Okay, but do you see the premise of what I'm saying though? Like it's like a very, very raw talent. Like the talent is there undeniably. But
yeah,
it's raw. It's raw. It's inconsistent. It's not credible. You can't base any level of expectation on him. So it's like this. I agree to drop 50 bar, but United will do it. What's 50M to them, man, bro?
No, so let me ask you this: do you not think that what you've just said, like the way you've described Richarlison, you don't think that Gakpo might just be like Martial?
Oh, wait, what? I don't understand. What's the?
You can't put any weight of expectation. You can't put any weight of expectation on him, and he's talented. It's very clear, mate. The way Gakpo goes to that game, the fact that he plays on the left-hand side and he's supposedly also a striker. I really.
Oh, okay. I see how you're approaching this. The reason I'll say I'd say no to the Martial comparison is because I think Martial, his ineptness stems from he's depressed. Like that's really it's antidepressant. It's like intrinsic. It's more to do with investment in the game. Whereas Gakpo and Richarlison, I feel they always are invested in the game, but they just don't know what to do on a football pitch. I get a feeling of just like genuine confusion when I see them play in, again, big games, because in big games is when it's most technical, and it's when the margins of, potential chaos causing or potential chance creating are so small. That's really where you see who does and doesn't know football, and or to the extent to which they know football, rather. And that's why I grouped them together, because Gakpo versus Arsenal, Gakpo now in this game, I'm looking at him and I'm like, bro, unless there's acres of space behind him, or unless he has a physical advantage over the centre backs, he's a
There's
bit.
nothing. There's
Yeah,
nothing.
he's a bit. Whereas with Martial, I've seen Martial in those games do well, but it's more of just a thing of like, has he had a Red Bull before he played? You know what? Like, how energized is
Like
he
the mood
really to
he's
go?
in.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I get what you're saying in the sense that he is like a positionally that uncertainty is a red flag with
Mm.
Gakpo, similarly to Martial, because the first okay, Martial started well, but then 2 seasons after his debut, it was really a question of, bro, where do you play? And
Mm.
like it seemed like no one could really give an answer to that question.
Yeah. And crucially, I think the one I really want to drive home is that in the similarity I point out between Gakpo and Martial, I think Martial is better than him.
Oh, okay. Yo, dude, Toby, when he hears this, is actually gonna he's gonna
No,
drop a
look,
rap for it.
like Doug, I want the very best for Gakpo. That and the best is not a 50 million move anyway.
Mm.
There's a move he must make before he takes that step, because if he does, he's gonna hate himself in 2 years' time.
Prioritizing black health, black images. I love that. Pro
Yeah,
black shit.
honestly, let's make smart moves, Oaks. Like we're tired of this. We're tired of talented footballers making the wrong big move just because it's a big move. Like if you play in the right league, you'll have your time.
Dog. And it's funny because how many Oaks must you see fail before niggas say this could be me? I think everyone looks at it and says this isn't going to happen to me.
Mm.
But like, no, it will. It will,
like
because
it can, but
it can.
we've discussed this. Like as footballers, you have to believe in exceptionalism. You have to believe that it can be different for me. If you don't, you'll never make any move. You'll never take any risk.
Yeah, fair, fair.
Mm.
Yeah, no, true. That so I guess you kind of damned if I do, damned if I don't. Finally,
Mm.
just to kind of round up this episode, though, I would like to just look towards the semi-final and to just kind of pick your brain on how you feel these games will play out tactically. So we didn't touch on Morocco, Portugal. So we just kind of just keep that in mind. The performances you've seen from Morocco throughout this tournament. Looking ahead towards France. Morocco are on a colonizer streak, just murking colonizers. How do you see this game, playing out? Do you see Morocco being able to take down the final boss colonizer?
I mean, look, I'd love it, right? It's a great story. We all want an African, in quotes, country to win. We really do. Like what it does for like how many other countries then can qualify for the next World Cup. Like that's the result we all want to see. I just I don't believe it. I don't. Like if that was to happen, if France somehow lost that game, I would think, okay, we're being lied to. How? Like I don't know how they do it. France are the one big team that doesn't necessarily commit absolutely everything going forward. I think they probably have the deepest midfield pivot of all the big sides. I don't think it'll be
Yeah.
as easy for Morocco to be playing on the counter and like catching them out the way they did against Portugal and against Spain to create their chances.
Mm.
So in my mind, France are too defensively rigid to get caught out that way. Like I think that the one thing they are set up to deal with better than everyone else is a team that plays on the counter, and
Mm.
they have better footballers. I don't know how. I don't. Like I
No,
don't I
that
don't
that
want to be despondent, but like I like what are you telling me? Like
that
France
was
France should win.
that that was you niggas should unsubscribe to the Athletic and just listen to this man speak football, because that was a really, really, really good breakdown, dude. I really like the way you pointed out the fact that like France defend with a mid slash low block, and really moving forward, they commit 4 or 5 players max, right? So you have Mbappe, Giroud, Griezmann, uh Rabiot running in from deep, and then Theo Hernandez. That's realistically how, for the most part, they attack. So, having potentially another 5 players behind the ball, and those 5 players being Varane, Upamecano, I mean, you're not gonna catch them on the break, right? Chouameni, so that does neutralize Morocco, and Morocco may not have the discipline to deal with, despite it only being 5 players. You have to be really locked in on your spacing, on your anticipation of if they decide to hit Giroud straight or if they decide to go around you on the flanks. You are 110% spot on, my brother. However, I'm going to say
the intangibles.
bro, first of all, right, Bufal, we need to talk about the fact that the whole Arab world thing was a strategic move, because that stadium is going to be filled with a lot of Arabs, right? And I don't know if our listeners have ever watched a game of football with like Arab supporters. It's tense. It's the crowd goes nuts. So I
Yo,
think the
watch Saudi Arabia
intangibles.
versus Argentina.
Perfect. Just go rewatch that game. Perfect. So now I'm looking at the intangibles, mate. I'm also looking at the fact that there's something very Leicester in the air. I can't. I may be wrong, bro, and I'm more than fine to sit on this L if it is the case. But bro, my logical prediction is everything you just said. France, 2-0, right? That's what my logic is telling. But my agenda, right? We just saw the FIFA corrupt Netflix video. The corruption is telling me, I'm joking, not corruption, but what it's telling me is this game goes one of 2 ways, bro. It's a boring 0-0 that goes to penalties, and it's anybody's game. I think this game will break the trend we've been seeing of very, very exciting games of football. Maybe exciting in the individual battles, but I don't see it correlating in high scoring or a lot of opportunities. And then it goes to penalties, and it's anyone's game. Or I see a situation, and it's always fascinating when France plays African teams, because France dominates Europe, in my opinion, because of the sheer advantage they have with the physicality, right? The French man lost a lot of wars, but those guys said we're going to have black bodies, and the athleticism of that team is nuts. But now I think they're so dependent on that athleticism that when they go up against African teams, they kind of have to pivot and approach the game differently. Historically, I believe they've had the capacity to do so, because I feel their midfield and their team as a whole have been more more inclined technically. But now you have a lot of individual specialists that let their men, their big names work. So I can kind of see a situation, honestly, where Morocco grab that goal, and as we saw with Portugal, can sit on it. So I kind of see it going two ways, right? A 0-0 to penalties, that it's anyone's game, or Morocco park that bus the fuck in and just let the vibes and pressure get to France. But I don't know, bro. I see Morocco in a final. I can't even lie to you.
It bothers me immensely because I just thought about this. The only team France have lost to this entire tournament, Tunisia.
African team. I'm telling you. Okay, it was their B team. It was their B team, of course. But still,
the point still stands.
Yeah. No, boy, I have a funny feeling in my guts. And then on the other side, which I think is a very interesting matchup, because you have, as we pointed out, probably the best midfielder in the tournament playing against the team that has a midfield that doesn't operate as a midfield. So how do you see that playing out? Because I don't think Argentina looked to dominate the proceedings in the midfield the way, Argentina kind of set up where it's Enzo as the individual pivots that distributes into channels, and then they create numeric advantages with Messi specifically on that right-hand side and Acuna just flying on the left, right? So how do you kind of see this playing out against Brozovic, Modric, Kovacic, and whichever other Chich they can bring into that midfield? How do you see the game panning out?
It's one that, like, I'm nervous to try and call because of what you just pointed out. Like, everything just, like, for me at least, I think Croatia might be favorites for this. Like, they have all the tools to control the game the way they'd like to. The last time they played in 2018, like last World Cup they been in, Croatia decimated them.
Fuck them up.
I don't necessarily think that this Argentine team is better all the way. like not, at least not much better than the team that Croatia beat the last time. I think that in this tournament, Croatia, in the same way, Morocco been able to, are very capable of like just grinding the game out. And I think if they find a way to nullify Messi, this game will go to extra time. And if that's the case, and if they somehow make it to penalties, I have my
My
money on
my
Croatia.
my boy, Croatia are hands down the best penalty taking. This group of this Croatian team is the best penalty taking national team we've ever seen. I know Germany have that insane record of never missing it, like a World Cup or an international event from like 1970 something to whatever. But I'm just talking an individual team. Croatia in the past three major tournaments, international tournaments, have gone to penalties. I think it's 7 times and have won every single one. No. I agree. If it goes to penalties or even added time, it's going one way, bro. I fully agree with that.
It's a scary thought.
I now do say this though, right? Because again, I think with the way Gravidol is performing, Lovren is also looking great. The willingness of I don't know their left back's name, but you know he looks like a very cute Eastern European boy. Is Croatia in Eastern Europe? Anyways, I do think that this game. I know in the last podcast episode I spoke about the need for Alvarez, for numbers and movement and defensive work. But I think Lautaro Martinez has to start. I think in a game like this, you need an extra body that's going to operate in the channels in between your center backs so that Messi has that extra movement. Because when it comes to defensive shape marking, I think Messi's going to struggle this game. I really do think you're equipped with enough. You have Luka Modric, who I feel matches Messi's center of gravity. So, like when it comes to that battle, historically Messi has struggled, to get the better of Modric. You then have Brozovic, who's screening and cleaning up any other loose ball that Messi kind of feeds off of, beats the first man, loose ball, draws you in, beats you, then he plays the pass. Then you have the physicality of I'm pronouncing it right? Gravidol. Am I pronouncing that man? But yeah, it's a situation where I feel you need a somewhat physical presence in Lautaro Martinez to be central there. So I think in this game, I see Croatia having the more menacing ball possession, but if Martinez, Messi, and one other person can show up, whether that's Acuna, whether that's DePaul, whether that's Di Maria, hopefully he's fit and ready to go. And if he is, that's a massive boost. Or whether that's McAllister, I think Argentina take it, man. I think Croatia's neutralizing of Argentina is kind of Messi-centric. And if Messi isn't a factor, or if Messi is one of many factors, rather, I don't see them having enough to really cope with the barrage of movements, individual brilliance that Argentina can conjure up. And in that situation, I can see Argentina winning this 2-1. Because one thing I think Emi Martinez has given these boys is mental toughness, and they're going to need a lot of mental toughness to overcome that 3-0 badgering that they got last time.
No, without a doubt. But that being said, I'm just praying Ottoman gives away a penalty and we see an end to this era. That's my ultimate hope.
Although I will say his dumb tendencies have been on a low this tournament. I must commend him.
No, look, international football is different. We that's the one thing I think we can all agree on. It's not the same thing.
Truly, it truly is. So in sum, to round off this episode, bro, final two, who are you calling?
It's France versus Croatia once again, and France win it again.
France versus Croatia, France win it again. My logic is telling me Argentina, France, and that game, I have no idea how to call. I think there are too many factors, but of course I'm not gonna back out of my belief that my GOAT will deliver. But my guts is just telling me it's a Morocco Argentina situation. How would you feel about a Croatia Morocco final?
If Modric wins it, I'm fine.
I won't lie, I may not watch it.
No, dude, come on.
Dude, like, no, I honestly, dude, I don't think that's for me. Like, shout out to both teams. Like, you're winning your first World Cup, it'll be nice. But personally, bro, I don't know if I'm. I'll be a bit hacked, dude. I won't lie. I'll be a bit annoyed.
I don't come to that, thankfully. Clips that might age poorly, but still.
Hey, and I'm happy you got ahead of it because the football gods have just been living to fucking ruin betting slips this tournament. But all in all, bro, thank you for the discourse and just sharing your insights on the games in this tournament. Do you have any final remarks? Anyone you want to shout out? Any statements you want to make?
World Cup or no World Cup, no Champions League after Barcelona or not, Neymar's the third best player of this generation. I don't care. I don't want to hear any argument about that. Thank you for your time.
Nah, man, I feel like that had to be said. That truly, truly had to be said. And I'm gonna echo the same sentiment. I think at some point as people, we need to be able to just look and use our eyes, bro. Like just look and use your fucking eyes and just understand that like some footballers there are few better custodians of the aura of football than that man, bro. So I agree. Let's put some respect on Neymar Jr.'s name.
Honestly. Thank you for your time, man.
Nah, of course, man. I hope the listeners enjoyed this. We've been Debates Never Die, and you'll hear from us very, very soon. Cheers.